Today is February 28th, 2019. I am Shaamir and I'm interviewing Russell Gallagher at Fuller Military Academy. Mr. Gallagher is the commandant. Mr. Gallagher is 65 years old and was born. Mr. Gallagher is 65 years old and was born May 15, 1953. Mr. Gallagher served in the Army. Mr. Gallagher was in the 25th ID and held the following rank Lieutenant Colonel. Why did you join the Army?
I wanted to serve my country, number one. Two, I thought it was a reasonably good and fun job. And three, I wanted to be an Army helicopter pilot.
Why did you pick the service branch you joined?
Primarily because when I was in high school, they gave me enough money to go to college. They paid entirely for my college. So it was a no-brainer to choose the Army because that's the way I could get a college education for free. Plus I wanted to fly helicopters.
Do you recall your first day in service?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Could you describe it?
It was very confusing, very hectic, thinking what have I gotten myself into, wonder when this day will be over. And I was also excited about the possibilities of what faced me in the days to come.
Tell me how your boot camp or training experience was.
Well, I've had a number of training experiences because I served in the Army for 21 years. I did the equivalent of boot camp while I was in college. I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, so if we're talking about the equivalent of my boot camp, my basic training, if you will, I was at Fort Riley, Kansas. It was very hot. It was in the summer. It was either July or August. Miserable. No air conditioning in the barracks, long days out in the field, hot, dusty, and I was glad when it was over.
Which war did you serve in? Which wars did you serve in?
I am a Vietnam era veteran. I did not actually serve in Vietnam, but I served during Vietnam. While I was in flight school, the Vietnam War ended. I also served during the Cold War. That is considered conflict. So I am Cold War era veteran too.
What was your job assignment?
Again, I had a number of different jobs, but primarily my job was as a helicopter pilot and jobs related to that, such as instructor pilot. I was also a company commander of an aviation company. I was the executive officer of an attack helicopter battalion. And I also served in some non-aviation slots, including serving as the S1 of a military intelligence brigade.
Were there many casualties in your unit?
Well, there were not many casualties in my unit because, again, I didn't actually fight in war, but many of the units I have served in suffered casualties when their units were at war. For example, the 25th Infantry Division suffered many casualties in Vietnam.
Tell me a couple of your most memorable experiences.
That's hard because I served 21 years. I had many memorable experiences, but one that I recall is flying in and around Hawaii and in the South Pacific and seeing some of the spectacular scenery that is offered in Hawaii and other South Pacific islands. In Hawaii, we saw, when I flew over the sunken battleships in Pearl Harbor, I could actually see them sitting on the sea floor, whereas most people can't see that. I also saw a number of crashed both American and Japanese airplanes in the mountains and in the water. And also, I saw some of the scenery, like the beautiful waterfalls in Hawaii, waterfalls that were creating rainbows from the mist, and again, some of the islands that we saw while we were there. Most of my memorable times come from flying.
Was there something special you did for good luck?
Kissed my wife. I also carried a lock of my wife's hair on my dog tags.
How did you entertain yourself?
Again, a lot of different ways. Depends on where I was and what I was doing, but in some of the deployment situations where it was sparse as to what we could do. Sometimes we would have movies. There was an opportunity to go to the equivalent of a bar. It was our own bar, and have some drinks, have some snacks, read, a lot of reading, writing letters home. This was the days before the internet, so we could actually write letters and receive letters. Again, we didn't have cell phones at the time, so we would maybe find the opportunity to make a telephone call. And then in some cases, like I said, when we were in Hawaii, we'd go swimming, snorkeling. Some of the things, enjoying hiking, enjoying some of the nature where we were.
You recall the day your service ended?
I absolutely do.
Can you describe it?
I can. I remember, first of all, I never intended to make the Army a career. I was going to do a couple years and get out. But I really enjoyed it, enjoyed what I was doing, I felt it valuable, so I decided to stay. And I ended up staying for 21 years. And on the night that my last day of the service, I remember laying in bed and hearing the clock chime midnight. That was June the 30th, 1995. And I remember hearing the clock chime midnight for July the 1st, 1995. And I remember thinking, that's it. My life is over. I have nothing else. And the next day, I started working for Junior ROTC. And my whole new life began. Hey there, how you doing?
How's it going?
Doing good.
Did you work or go back to school?
I worked. I started ROTC the next day. And I went back to school later. I worked in ROTC for about 10 years, and I went back to school, got my principal's certificate and my doctorate in education.
What did you do as a career after your service?
I was an ROTC instructor. I ran the ROTC program in Philadelphia, and I finished my educational career as a principal. And then unretired and came back to be with Shaamir cotton-hart and have him dog me for the remainder of my life.
Thank you for your service and thank you for being interviewed.
You're most welcome. Was it what you needed?